I want the risk of massive nuclear contamination to be zero, so we don't use nuclear. Simple. And renewables don't have those risks and are cheaper. So it's not an uncommon anti-nuclear narrative that you have out there. You want the risk from something to be zero. And that actually can be attractive in the sense that you say, I want zero risk. And what's wrong with wanting zero risk? Well, the truth is that you actually never have zero risk. What you want to have, what you should want to have, is having the least amount of risk. If you say, well, I'm going to accept something that has a really massive risk because I want something else to have a zero risk, that's really, really bad logic. Just incredibly bad logic. If you say that, I'll take a really high risk in trade of having something else have a zero risk. Obviously, what you want is you want all risks to be at a minimum. How do you minimize your risk? That's the logical, that is what I would say is the moral and ethical way to do it, rather than say I'm going to accept a massive risk in order to make sure that I have something else have a zero risk. And that's the kind of thing you can get from people that are renewables only, at least in my experience, that they actually do try to promote those narratives, as you saw in that comment there. And the truth is that if you want the lowest risk, nuclear is it. Flat out, full stop, nuclear is it. The lowest number of deaths per terawatt hour, the lowest number of environmental impacts from mining and milling and manufacturing, land use, the lowest amount of waste generated from all the materials that you have to use, renewables. They might not have a fuel that requires something, but the amount of materials required to create the infrastructure to extract the renewables, it just requires an enormous amount of materials per terawatt hour of energy that you get. And the least number of deaths, right now, if you include Chernobyl with nuclear, then solar is safer than nuclear. But I would argue that folding Chernobyl into nuclear is like folding the Hindenburg into air travel. It's just not credible that the Hindenburg could happen again unless somebody did it intentionally. And somebody could decide, oh, I'm going to go and make a dirigible that's made out of hydrogen, a flammable gas, and I'm going to put people up there. I mean, I suppose that's possible, but it still would be unreasonable to fold that into air travel, in my opinion. And so I would argue the same thing with Chernobyl. It's just ancient Soviet technology that obviously nobody's going to find attractive anymore. And so if you wanted the lowest overall risk, then it's going to be with nuclear. But one thing that person did get right is nuclear is expensive. That's the initial cost. In that sense, it's like hydroelectric. The initial cost is massive, but these things last for so vast, long periods of time that the overall investment is very attractive. You actually get a bigger return on investment, or you can, assuming that you don't have huge delays in construction and that people don't hold it up in courts so that you end up having these bank fees for the loan to construct it. But as a general rule, that would be the case. It's just like with hydroelectric, you could also lose a lot of money there if you had a lot of NIMBYism and people opposed it and it got held up in the courts while you're in the middle of construction. So you had to continue to pay the bank loan without actually doing construction because people were able to take that to the courts. But I hope that the point's been made that really, if you want to minimize risks, it's nuclear. If you are so terrified of nuclear that you say that I'm going to take any risk, no matter how high, and accept that simply so I can have this other risk be zero, it just doesn't make sense. But we're all welcome to not make sense should we choose to do so, and we can all continue to do that if we see fit. Anyway, I hope that was enlightening. You all enjoy the video and learn something, and that you all have a great day. Bye.